In this video lesson, we'll explore the creation of the Articles of Confederation, America's first Constitution. After the war, America's economy suffered from out-of-control speculation, profiteering, and high consumption, runaway inflation, Britain's cutoff of cash payments for naval stores and tobacco, the barring of U.S. commercial shipping from British and West Indian ports, the dumping of cheap British goods in the colonies, demands by France for repayment of loans, and problems with Spain concerning commerce on the Mississippi River. Conversely, states seized former crown lands and loyalist properties, which were subdivided and sold for profit. You can see in the map that is shown here the different territories claimed by different countries and the economic cross-currents that took place. The new United States benefited from the boost given to domestic manufacturers by the pre-war non-importation agreements and the disruption of trade during the war. In addition, America benefited from new commercial trade with foreign nations which had previously been off limits under England's hated mercantilist policies. In the Great Lakes region and all along the northern border, British agents continued to operate fur trading posts on American soil, seeking to create a buffer zone between Canada and the United States. England's excuse for keeping troops on U.S. soil was to ensure that Americans honored their promises to loyalists and debt payments to the British merchants, promises made in the Treaty of Paris ending the Revolutionary War. British agents also conspired with the Allen brothers of Vermont to annex that territory to Canada. Vermonters were largely unhappy with the state of political and economic affairs in the U.S. following the war. Spain also threatened U.S. interests because it claimed exclusive rights to the Mississippi River, and it closed it to American commerce in 1784, threatening Western farmers and merchants with economic strangulation. Spain claimed Florida and a large area north of the Gulf of Mexico and east of the Mississippi River, an area given to the U.S. by Britain in the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Spanish agents schemed with southeastern Indian tribes to block migration of Americans to the west of the Allegheny Mountains. America's former ally, France, renewed demands for repayment of money loaned during the war and restricted U.S. trade with their French Indian colonies and other French ports. In the Mediterranean, U.S. commercial shipping was threatened by North African pirates who seized ships and crews at will. Economically and military weak, the U.S. was unable to bribe the Dey of Algiers or other pirates to ensure safe passage for their ships. Politically, American unity was fractured by suspicion of authority, confusion, and waning allegiance to a common cause. Still, America was blessed with political leaders of the highest order, men like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and Ben Franklin. Americans also benefited from a rich political legacy partly derived from Britain and from their own experience with self-government. Finally, the 13 sovereign states were basically alike in government structure and functioned under very similar state constitutions. In May of 1775, the Second Continental Congress had demanded a unified response to British aggressions, which led to the Declaration of Independence and drafting the Articles of Confederation in November 1777, which created a loose union of confederation of confederated states. The Articles of Confederation provided that each state would retain all powers and rights not expressly delegated to the Congress of the Confederation. Congress would be composed of 2 to 7 delegates from each state, elected annually by state legislatures. Each state delegation would have only 1 vote. Routine decisions would require a simple majority vote of 7 states. Major decisions, such as declaring war, would require 9 states to agree. Each state was to contribute tax revenue in proportion to the property value of the state's land, and taxes to be levied by state legislators, not by Congress, and the amendment of the Articles required a unanimous consent of the states. The Articles of Confederation contained weaknesses, a result of the then prevailing opinion that strong governments led to tyranny and abuse of citizens' rights. Among the Articles' weaknesses were: there was no national executive to provide leadership and enforce national law, no national judiciary to interpret the law, Congress did not have the power to tax, making it dependent on states for tax revenue. An amendment process was only happening by unanimous consent of states, a provision which proved unworkable and prevented necessary changes to the document, and no provisions compelling states to obey national laws passed by Congress. After ratification of the Articles, Congress created executive departments of War, Finance, and Foreign Affairs to handle administrative functions of the new government. However, no celebration greeted inauguration of the new government. States were slow in selecting delegates to the Congress, and appointees exhibited a reluctance to attend. Absenteeism was very high. The Articles were not ratified by all the states until 1781, due to arguments between the states over how to deal with conflicting Western land claims in the Trans-Allegheny West. 5 states lacking Western land claims, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and New Jersey, held up approvals of the Articles, insisting that Congress should control the Western lands as part of the national domain from which new states would be created. In 1781, Virginia, led by Congressmen Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, ceded its Western land claims to Congress, leading the way for other states with land claims to follow suit. Virginia's action reflected a prevailing statesman-like Republican principles of the period. The larger issue of land claims in general reflected divisions within the 13 states. This is a map of Western land cessions to the United States from the individual states that had claimed the Western land from 1782 to 1802. By the 1780s, 7 years of war had run up huge debts, financed by printing of between 500 million in paper currency and heavy borrowing from private sources. Moreover, the Confederation government was unable to meet its debt obligations, contend with wild fluctuations in wages and prices, and effectively confront problems associated with territorial expansion and civil disorder. In 1781, Robert Morris, who was the superintendent of finance, proposed several remedies for the nation's economic problems. His first proposal was a 5% import tax, a tariff which had no legal basis under the Articles of Confederation, required a constitutional amendment, and the 13 states could not agree on that amendment. Morris's second idea was to create a Bank of North America. The Bank of North America, a private bank, would hold the government's hard money deposits, hold private deposits, provide the government with short-term loans, issue banknotes backed by hard currency, and in 1781, Congress passes legislation creating the Bank of North America, which ultimately enriches Morris and 3 associates, but did not revive the economy in the 1780s. Overall, the Articles of Confederation created a weak government unable to meet the nation's financial needs, leaving Congress unable to tax, to limit the printing of state-issued paper, money, control inflation, or pay the growing public debt. We'll investigate the strengths and weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation in more detail in class.